In this episode, we'll take a look at the PortKeys HS7T, which is a small 7-inch monitor with HDMI and SDI inputs for your camera. So first of all, what is unique about this monitor? There are thousands of 7 and 5-inch monitors available for hybrid cameras and DSLRs. What makes this one unique? Well, I think the main thing that makes it unique is that, first of all, it's a 7-inch HD monitor, actually 1920 by 1200, but what makes it unique there is that it has 1200 nits of output. So it has a lot of output, so that makes it so that you can actually use it outdoors in the sunshine, which is a lot harder to do with a lot of the other monitors on the market. That 7-inch panel is very nice. It does have nice viewing angles. It's actually an IPS monitor, so the viewing angles are up to 178 degrees. It works pretty well from that standpoint. It is an 8-bit monitor, but that's not unusual in this price range. The HDMI input can support up to DCI 4K at 60p, and the SDI input supports up to HD, also at 60p. And there are also HDMI and SDI outputs, so you can send the signal on to another device. Another thing that's very good about this monitor are the powering options. On the back are 2 sleds for NPF-style batteries. So in this case, for example, I'm powering it with Sony NPF 970 batteries. And one of these in my test could actually power the monitor for 4 hours and 10 minutes. Now, let me give you a little more context to that. That was attached to the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K via HDMI. And we had the monitor for the first hour set to the high brightness. That is to say, the backlight was set to its highest setting, so it was outputting the full 1200 nits. And then we dropped that down to the medium setting about an hour in, and that's where we got the additional 3 hours and 10 minutes. So hopefully that gives you a sense for the real-world powering. Now, that was with one NPF battery. If you put 2 of them on there, you could get through most production days. But what's nice is that there's also a DC input. The monitor also comes with this adapter cable, so you can power the monitor from a Sony V-mount or Anton Bauer-style cinema battery. And there, the sky's the limit. You could easily power this through an entire production day with a cinema battery. Another unique feature is it does support LUTs, and you can input those into the monitor via this USB port. It actually comes with a USB drive that is loaded with a whole series of LUTs that you can use, and of course you can load your own in there as well. It does come with this matte screen protector if you choose to use that. Obviously, they usually put glossy screens on less expensive monitors like this. It helps with the contrast. I don't really care for the matte screen, and I don't shoot outside a whole lot, but that may help a little bit when you're working outdoors. For future expansion, not something that I have here and not part of this review, there is also an add-on wireless transmitter that allows you to send the signal wirelessly from your camera over to the monitor. One of the challenges with inexpensive monitors is that oftentimes they arrive and they're completely uncalibrated and they don't match your camera at all. Now, I'm not suggesting that the PortKeys should be used as a grading monitor for color grading, but it is definitely calibrated from the factory, and the colors and the contrast look pretty nice. So they definitely matched my cameras that I use them with, both the Pocket Cinema 4K and also the Panasonic GH series. In terms of overall build, it's encased in this sort of rubberized plastic case, which is actually quite nice. The ports are all on the bottom of the screen. It's thin, lightweight, and it feels pretty durable, like it'll hold up pretty nicely over time, so I was pretty happy with that. Also has 1/4-20 threads on all 4 edges of the monitor, so you have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you can mount this to your camera rig. At the time of this review, it's priced at $339 US. Of course, check the links below for the updated price. There are also audio meters, a headphone jack, and volume control. You also have options to turn on grids, crosshairs, and aspect ratio guides, as well as exposure tools, false color, zebras, histogram, and a color channel exposure tool. You can also flip the image over if you're going to be mounting it upside down. One of the big challenges, again, with a lot of the monitors out on the market, the less expensive ones in particular, is that there appears to be a fair bit of latency. That is to say, what is being captured by your camera, it takes it a little while, a period of time before it makes it to your monitor and is displayed on your monitor. Now, that's a couple of different things going on. A lot of times it has to do with the HDMI output on your camera. There's just some latency from the time the camera records and then sends the signal out. So sometimes there'll be a delay before you see what's happening on your external monitor. That's just normal. It's especially bad with HDMI. So what I looked for here is how much of a delay there was. There is still some HDMI delay, but I will say it's less than I experienced on some of the other inexpensive monitors out on the market. So it's not perfect. So if you need something that's perfectly real time via HDMI, this is not going to be it. What I did notice also is that SDI had even less latency, and that was even easier to work with. So definitely something to keep in mind, and that applies not only to the video, but also to the audio that's coming from the camera to the monitor. In terms of controls, there are 4 custom buttons on the top that allow you to choose different things. So for example, on mine, I have the buttons set up to give me false color, to turn on the histogram, and to also turn on focus peaking. You have a separate button to choose the input source, and then you have a wheel and a button control for the menu and adjusting your headphone levels. Now, as with all products, there are some cons. Let's go ahead and run through those. First of all, there was no battery charge level indicator. This was a little befuddling to me. I have never experienced an electronic device that didn't give me some sort of readout on what the battery status was. And there is a battery is low alarm apparently that goes off, but there's no indicator, so you don't really know where you're at in terms of battery status. That seems like something they could probably add in a future firmware update, and I hope, PortKeys, if you're watching this, which I hope you are, I hope you can add something like that in a future firmware update. Now, while the monitor is calibrated out of the factory and looks pretty good and didn't really need any adjustments, it would be nice in the case that you do need to make some adjustments to have an RGB type of control. So right now in the menu, you just have a chroma and a tint control. I'd rather have independent RGB controls if I did have to dial in the color a little bit. As is common with most budget monitors, anything probably under $300 or $400 and less, there are no waveform monitors and vector scopes, unfortunately. Can I live without those? Yeah, at this price point, I can live without those. Would be nice to see those if it's possible. Now, as I mentioned before, there are audio meters, which is awesome. Love to have audio meters on the monitor. However, in this particular case, they're sort of laid out in an unusual fashion with the left channel on the left side and the right channel on the right side, but their meters are actually inverted. They face the same way towards the center of the screen. That's a little bit unusual. It can be used still. It's just a little bit different than I'm used to seeing. And it doesn't really give you any sort of guide as to what the markings mean on the meter. So you have to kind of work with your camera and calibrate the two of them, or just figure out when the peaks are hitting at such level on the camera, that's what it means on the monitor, just so you're aware. Aside from the battery status indicator, which hopefully they can fix in a firmware update, I found this monitor to be really quite good. The other cons don't really bother me that much, at least at this price point, so I think it's a really good value. It's amazing to be able to get a high nit output monitor like this for about $340 at the time of this review, and also to have those other features which work very nicely. I think the buttons and the controls for the menus and such work nicely. The battery and powering options are really, really quite nice on this. I love that it comes with the cable that allows you to connect to a cinema battery, because these monitors can just burn through batteries. And so it's really nice to have that option to help keep you from getting pulled out of the creative process in the middle of shooting. Also, of course, love that it has both SDI and HDMI inputs. Now, the SDI is only HD, but for me, that's not a problem. Again, you're just displaying HD anyway, even if you're putting a 4K signal into the monitor from your other camera. But it's nice to have SDI because now I can use this not only with my hybrid cameras or the Pocket Cinema Camera, but also with cameras like the Ursa Mini Pro, which only has SDI outputs. So, hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave those down below. And if you've not already subscribed, make sure you do that, and we'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk to you soon.